tomato fruit, commonly known as matunda ya damu, is what most farmers here in Nyandarua County live and breathe. And today on Fresh and Fruity Farming, we are all about the Treetomato, and we are here at the Plovers Eco Farm, which is owned by Mr. Wachira, who also doubles up as an agro-tourist. Hi, Mr. Wachira.
Hi,
how are you?
I'm fine.
Thank you so much for inviting us to your farm.
Yeah.
I can see you have a lot of tree tomatoes that are looking very beautiful.
Sure.
I can't wait to have a bite.
Wow. At your own time, have a kg.
We'll start with why tree tomato farming?
Okay, tree tomato farming is viable, one. Second, it is profitable to me and even to other people who are doing it locally. So that's why I majored on tree tomato farming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Planting of fruits, it varies according to the season. So which is the most favorable season for the tree tomato plant?
For people who don't have irrigation water, we wait for the wrong rains, and after that, maybe at around May, you can plant, and rainwater from heavens will just grow the tomato to actually around November when it dries up, and then you can maybe water using a sprinkler when it is so dry to maintain the tree.
What are some of the requirements that are also needed for, as a farmer, for you to plant such a fruit?
Okay, resource, rad. You must have rad. Secondly, you must have maybe a roof catchment water to support you whenever you are doing the plantation. You also need compost manure or even livestock manure. So for the tree to be healthy, since the tree tomato requires much of manure than other fertilizers, which are chemical, but they are not very good for this tree or this kind of farming.
And apart from the soil that you're mentioning, let's talk about the kind of temperature and humidity levels that are needed. I can notice that this place is a bit chilly and cold.
Yeah.
So what conditions is favorable for the growth of the tree tomato?
Tree tomato does very well in the high rads. Where we are right now, we are like 2470 meters above sea level. So this is a plateau, the Kinago plateau. So it is humid and very cold at night. So it is favorable for the tree tomato. From here even to up to the Aberdare regions. Quite good, favorable.
But what happens when the weather is a bit too hot for the tree tomato?
Okay, the tree tomato doesn't like those hot weathers like in the Rift Valley. So it will require so much water for it not to wilt or shrink down. So that is another problem. But for the Kinangop, or rather the Nyandarua County, where we have mist in the morning, it is again, using the canopy, the plant is able to get so much of the mist and drop as droplet of water under the canopy.
There's this notion that goes around that you have to soak your seeds in specifically hot water conditions in order to get rid of the pathogens. If you do this, is there any specific reason why? And if not, why don't you do this?
Okay, first of all, to me, boiling any seed is like destroying the cells of that seed and maybe even killing the seed. Again, in the communities, we don't have such facilities to measure the temperature of the water needed or the heat needed. So it is good to to do it locally using the indigenous knowledge. And the indigenous knowledge is you can brush or even mix up your seeds with ash and other good things like let's say diatomaceous. That is a dust coming from the area of Ogigu, from the atomite, and you can plant using that because one, it is in the soil, it will keep off the acidity, and again, it will keep off again the diseases. So there is no need of boiling or doing whatever to remove the pathogens. Ash is enough.
Speaking of soil as a requirement, what specific soil is required in order to have a very good harvest from your tree tomato?
Okay, Kinangop has like 3 kinds of soil. In my area of Mwehote village, we have the the white soil, and around, rather going down to the Rift Valley, you have the clay soil. All of the two soils, the Treetomato does very well. So there's no choice for the tomato, even for those who are at the Aberdare area where there's red soil, it also does very well. So there's no choice of maybe saying this soil or that. It is perfectly good in Nyandarua.
Now that this place is a bit chilly and a bit humid, and as you can feel there's so much wind here, does this affect the amount of water that is needed for the successful growth of the tree tomato?
No, actually, tree tomato doesn't like so much water. As you can see where we are studying, my tree tomatoes are already on a raised bench, because when you do on a front ground where we are right now, the tree tomatoes will rot and will dry up. So the tree tomato doesn't like so much water. So that's why I've raised my bench for it to be a bit higher. But for people who are around the Aberdare ridges, they can do even on a flat rod, because they don't have the clay down. It is purely red soil with no rocks underneath. Here you get the clay after digging for only 1 feet. So that one, again, it does not allow for the water to percolate and go completely down. So that's why where we are around Mihoti, you have to raise your ground and plant your tree tomato to avoid so much water.
You've mentioned that the tree tomato will log whenever there's too much water.
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean by logging?
Logging is when water floods and the soil is saturated and does not take more. So even the tree will get so much water through the roots, and it will go over the turgidity level and even dries up, because the roots will first of all die, and then the other shoot will die. So logging is about much water in the soil and no more than the soil can afford to take or percolate it down. So it logs and kills everything that is around.
Before we go to planting, what are some of the land preparation measures that will take place in order for your land to be ready for the tree tomato seed?
Okay, it is like any other crop around this place. You have to prepare your land after December. So in January, all the tractors are very busy here until end March when the rain comes. So we have to prepare early for the soil to be so much well aerated, for it to get air, enough air, and for even the workers to hoe the holes, and even put the borea or the manure in ample time. When you bring the tree tomato seedling, the hole will be already having everything that is required in good time. Yeah.
Tell me about the spacing. What is the recommended spacing from one tree tomato to the other?
Okay, from the agricultural officer, they will tell you that you need to do an interval of like 5 feet to 4 feet in the row. But as a researcher, actually I'm a citizen scientist around this place, so I need to also research on my own, because sometimes we have weed that comes, and when the tree is heavily ridden with the fruits, they break up. So in the new shamba you see across that area, I have tried to minimize from 4 feet to 3 feet. Why? Because when the canopy branches, it will now rock. The tree will rock. This one will rock with the other, and that way no breakages will happen, and so I won't lose so much of my fruits. Yeah.
Nice. So now, after creating the spacing and the furrows and whatnot, let's now go to the drilling of the seed inside the soil. How deep does it go?
Okay, if our tree tomato is a heavy feeder and does not feed down there, it feeds across the fibrous root over on the top. So you don't have to dig so deep, because after digging so deep, now the water will rot and kill the plant. So we need to do a hole like 1 feet and then feed it with the manure, like 1 debe per seedling. And again, you mix up with the soil. But when you bring up the seedling, you don't dig it down again. You put it just or almost half of that on 1 feet.
What happens next?
Okay, when you plant, the planting is almost known to everybody. Like we plant the trees around anywhere else. So, but after sometimes when the plant is already developed, you can come and dig again a radius hole and add more manure, because this plant is a heavy feeder, and you can continue doing that as because the circumference where the leaves are right now, where the canopy is where even the roots are. So it is equal, this is equal to the roots. So whenever you want to top dress, you don't have to dig around the plant. You have to dig again, measuring from the canopy.